The insane world of illegal Japanese street racing. For gearheads, few places in the world evoke as much emotion as Japan. Tokyo Nights, Midnight Madness. From the 80s to 90s, Japan became home to one of the most vibrant underground street racing scenes in the world. Nowhere else can you find such a mix of extreme speed, driver skill, and silent secrecy. It also brought some of the biggest innovations to the street racing and car modding scene, from the cars known as JDM in the US to illegal mods that supercharge your Supra. Sure, it was illegal, but it was never really about breaking laws, but about pushing the limits of man and machine, lawlessness. On the contrary, ultimate discipline and the golden rule, do no harm. And this pushed the movement to global fame. Fast and Furious, Initial D, Forza Horizon. These are just some of the cultural touchstones that were born from a Japanese subculture. Long before anime dominated high school group chats, Japanese cars were dominating drivers' dreams. So in a world of private clubs that demanded respect, reputation, and rigor, and you might be asking yourself, how did Japanese street racing take over the world? So you have this great split in the world of Japanese car rebellion. The Bosozoku were making loud, flashy art projects to annoy society. But the Hashiri, they were the quiet kids in the back of the class, the ones who were actually studying, except their subject was physics, the physics of speed. They were the ones who mattered. And then the 80s happened. Japan's economy went completely bonkers. The bubble economy, meaning suddenly regular guys had cash to burn. At the exact same moment, Japanese car makers decided to start building the greatest affordable sports cars the world has ever seen. It was the perfect storm. You could walk out of a showroom with a brand new Nissan Skyline, a Toyota Supra, or a Mazda RX-7, a blank canvas begging to be turned into a monster. This is when the scene exploded. It wasn't just random street racing anymore, it was organized. It was tribal. You had different dohos for this new martial art of speed. First, you had the Wangen, the long, open highways of Tokyo where the only god was horsepower. This was the F-14 Tomcat of street racing, all about pure 90 terrifying top speed. It was here that guys in 600 horsepower Supras and Skylines would try to break the 200 M barrier, weaving through sleepy late night traffic like it was a video game. Then you had the complete opposite, the Touge, the Taik, treacherous mountain passes. A big power Wangen car was useless here. It'd just understeer into a cliff. The Touge was a knife fight in a phone booth. It was a domain of the lightweight masters, the AE86 Corolla, the Nissan Silvia. It was all about skill, balance, and having the sheer guts to flick your car sideways inches from a guardrail. And while these guys were battling it out, the high priest of performance, the legendary tuning shops, were supplying the weapons. Shops like Top Secret, run by the infamous Smokey Nagata, a man so obsessed with top speed he built a 1,000 horsepower V12 powered Supra, shipped it to the UK for a test run, and promptly got arrested doing nearly 200 miles per hour on a public highway before being banned from the country for 10 years. That's commitment. But at the absolute peak of this pyramid, shrouded in mystery, was the Midnight Club. Think of them as the Navy SEALs of street racing. With maybe 30 members total, you couldn't just join. You had to be an elite driver with an elite machine, and even then, you'd be a lowly apprentice for a year. Their machines were unbelievable cars with hundreds of thousands of dollars poured into them, all built to break 300 kilometers per hour or 186 miles per hour. Their code was even stricter than their entry requirements. Public safety was everything. If your actions caused an accident involving a civilian, you were out. No exceptions, no second chances. So how does the secret world of illegal racing, hidden in the mountains and highways of Japan, end up taking over the planet? Well, this secret world couldn't stay secret forever, mostly because the Japanese are experts at exporting their coolest stuff through manga and anime. It started with stories like Wangen Midnight, a manga that was basically a love letter to the insane top speed battles on the Tokyo expressways. It told the story of the Devil Z, a cursed fair lady Z that seemed to possess its drivers. Then came Initial D, the story of a kid named Takumi Fujiwara who delivers tofu for his dad in a Toyota AE86 and accidentally becomes a Touge racing god. These weren't just comic books, they were blueprints. They showed the world the cars, the techniques, and the honor code of the Hashiri Ya. Then came the video games. Gran Turismo on the PlayStation was a game changer. For the first time, Kids in America, Europe, and everywhere else could drive these legendary Japanese cars, the Skylines, Supras, RX-7s that they couldn't get in their own countries. It was a digital encyclopedia of JDM. Then you had the arcades, games like Wangan Midnight Maximum Tune, which let you live out your midnight club fantasies for a few hundred yen. The games taught us the lingo, the cars, and the culture. And then Hollywood noticed. In 2001, The Fast and the Furious hit theaters. It took the burgeoning import tuner scene in Southern California, a scene already obsessed with Japanese cars and style, and injected it with Hollywood steroids. Suddenly, the whole world was watching Vin Diesel talk about 100 shot of NOS and seeing that bright orange Toyota Supra become a movie star. It was loud, it was silly, but it took this underground culture and blasted it onto every screen on earth. When the third movie, Tokyo Drift, came out, it brought everything full circle, introducing the masses to the art of drifting and the very real touch scene that inspired it all. Now, we live in the aftermath of that explosion. The term JDM, which just means Japanese domestic market, has become a badge of honor. Thanks to America's 25-year import rule, the exact cars that were battling it out on the Wangan and Tuje back in the 90s are now legal to import. And people are paying insane money for them. That Nissan Skyline that was a blue-collar hero car in Japan is now a six-figure collector's item in the States. That humble Honda Civic the Kanjizoku used to terrorize Osaka, it's now a prized possession for enthusiasts. This illegal underground rebellion didn't just create a car scene, it created a global religion. Response from the authorities and international pushback. Now, you're probably asking a very logical question. While all this high-speed mayhem was happening, where the hell were the police? Well, for a long time, it was a high-tech game of cat and mouse. The racers weren't stupid. They had spotters, they used police scanners, and they knew the highways better than the guys paid to patrol them. Plus, let's be honest, a standard issue Toyota Crown police cruiser, bless its heart, stood zero chance of catching a 600 horsepower, custom-built Skyline that was already doing 150 miles per hour. The cops could show up, but by the time they did, the race was usually long over. But this couldn't last forever. As the scene got more famous and the cars got faster, the authorities had to clamp down, and they got smart about it. They started installing automated speed cameras, what the Japanese call Orbis, all over the expressways. These were the unblinking eyes that you couldn't outrun. They also cracked down hard on the shaken, Japan's notoriously strict vehicle inspection. Suddenly, owning a heavily modified car became an expensive and bureaucratic nightmare. That massive turbo, illegal. That straight pipe exhaust, that sounds like a gunshot. Forget it. This slowly but surely started to squeeze the life out of the golden age of street racing. The car makers themselves also got put under pressure. This led to the infamous Gentleman's Agreement. From 1989 to 2005, all the major Japanese auto manufacturers informally agreed to limit the advertised horsepower of their performance cars to just 276 horsepower. It was a way for the industry to self-police, to avoid being blamed by the government for fueling a dangerous horsepower war on the streets. This is why you had cars like the R34 Skyline GTR or the Mark IV Supra that were famously over-engineered. Everyone knew they were making way more than 276 horsepower straight from the factory, but on paper, they all played by the rules. It was the industry's way of saying, hey, we're not the problem here. And the pushback wasn't just in Japan. As these cars became legends, people in other countries, especially the US, wanted them badly. This created a gray market of imported cars that didn't meet local safety and emission standards. The US government's response was the Motor Vehicle Safety Compliance Act of 1988, which led to the dreaded 25-year rule. This law basically made it illegal to import a car that wasn't sold in the US until it was a quarter century old. Oh, while kids in Japan were thrashing Silvius and Skylines, American enthusiasts could only press their noses against the glass, stuck waiting decades for their heroes to become legal. It was the ultimate international cockblock, courtesy of the federal government. The modern takeover is dominated by American muscle. We're talking Crown Vic's Dodge Chargers, Challengers, and Ford Mustangs. Cars with cheap, easily accessible horsepower, perfect for creating huge clouds of tire smoke and getting sideways in an intersection. The focus has shifted from the precise, technical tuning of a Japanese import to the raw, brute force spectacle of a V8 burnout, to still a form of rebellion, a way for a new generation to carve out their own space on the streets. But the philosophy couldn't be more different. The discipline, the respect, the almost surgical precision of the Japanese street racers has been replaced by a desire for instant fame and chaotic disruption. It's the evolution or maybe devolution of a culture, reshaped by new technology and a completely different set of rules. So, with all that pressure from the authorities and the car makers, what happened to the scene? Is it still alive? Well, yes and no. The golden age, that perfect storm of the 80s and 90s, is over. The days of huge organized groups like the Midnight Club, openly challenging each other on the Wangan, are gone. The police crackdown and the strict inspections made it too difficult, too risky, and too expensive. Today, the scene in Japan is much more subdued. It's less about high-speed racing and more about massive car meets at legendary spots like the Daikoku Fudo parking area. It's a place for owners to show off their incredible machines, a rolling car show that still occasionally gets broken up by the police. The hardcore racing still exists, but it's gone much deeper underground. The Kanjazoku and Osaka are still rumored to run the loop, but they're ghosts, a far cry from their infamous heyday. The spirit is there, but the game has changed. But while the original scene faded in Japan, the culture it created mutated and evolved around the world, creating a new, very different kind of monster, the street takeover. This is the modern face of illegal car culture, especially in the US. Forget the honor code of the Hashiri-ya. Forget do no harm. The takeover is the exact opposite. It's about shutting down a public street or intersection, blocking traffic, and creating a pit for burnouts, donuts, and chaos until the cops show up. And the driving force behind this new scene, social media. The Midnight Club was built on secrecy and word of mouth. The takeover scene is built on Tokyo Drift, even though they don't do much drifting. Instead of secret meeting spots, locations are dropped to thousands of people minutes before the event, ensuring maximum chaos and a huge audience. The cars have changed too. While you'll still see JDM legends,